if God shows you as you visit the valley, you see, here is where you stop being committed to doing my work. Here's where you put other things ahead of me. You know what you've got to do? You've got to utilize that understanding and put God back in first place. As you look at the skeleton of your marriage, and God said, here's where you started being smart aleck and sarcastic and hard to get along with, and here's where your marriage started falling apart, then you've got to be willing to go back and change what you've done. You see, before God does anything spiritually, that's coming in the next verses, you have to do something physically. This skeleton had to come together physically before God ever moved spiritually. You have to utilize your understanding. God is not going to move heaven and earth to breathe life back into these bones if you're just putting them together to make the same mistakes you made the first time. He prophesies to these bones the truth that he learned in verses 1 and 2. In other words, bones, here's what you've got to do different. He took the lessons learned from the view of the valley and utilized his understanding going forward. What does that mean? Whatever God shows you. If God shows you that you have a problem drinking, maybe alcohol is a problem for you. I don't know if it is or not. Here's what I would say to you. Don't pray to God to deliver you from alcohol while you got a six-pack in the refrigerator. But if God says to you, you've got a problem with gambling, don't pray to God to deliver you from gambling while you're driving to Biloxi. If God says to you, you've got a problem with pornography, don't pray to God to deliver you from pornography while you've still got all the websites in the memory of your computer. You see what I'm saying? It does no good to ask God to put these bones back together if you're going to make the same mistakes going forward that you made to this point. I think about a very dear friend, and I've said this to them, I don't care if they see it on the internet or here, that has suffered with breathing problems, lung cancer, I mean terrible things. And they have prayed for God to heal them while they keep lighting up their cigarettes. Listen, you've got to realize, you've got to prophesy the truth to these dry bones, because if you're going to put them back together and make the same mistakes, if you didn't learn the lesson from the valley, God's not going to breathe life back into it. You want your marriage to be different? You got to be different. You want your Christian life to be different? You've got to be different. You want your relationship with your family to be different? You've got to be different. It's not enough to visit the valley. You've got to utilize your understanding. That's why I pointed this out to you a while ago. Keep reading with me in verse 8. I looked, and tendons and flesh appeared on them, and skin covered them. But look at this. There was no breath in them. You see, at this point, nothing from the Spirit of God has happened. At this point, no life is there. They put the corpse back together, but there's no life. You've got to utilize your understanding and move to do things different physically before God ever does it spiritually.